Well, the trial of Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too movement has pushed sexual assault crimes front and center. While women's advocates call Weinstein's conviction a turning point, many caution that more needs to be done to help survivors. Yesterday, sexual assault survivors and their supporters gathered at City Hall calling for reform. They applauded courageous victims for coming forward, but pointed to a frightening incident last month and demanded change.
The NYPD ignored a rape victim, talked her out of proceeding with their own investigation, and failed to investigate her case. They let a rapist go free who went on to attack 3 more New York City women. This catastrophic police failure is a symptom of a special victims division in deep crisis.
And feminist icon Gloria Steinem was also joined with the activists and delivered a letter to Mayor de Blasio outlining her concerns. And joining us now, we have City Council member Helen Rosenthal, who was also at City Hall yesterday. First, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to get your title right. So, Chair of the Committee on Women and Gender Equality.
That's right.
So let's get right to it. You have some concerns about staffing at the NYPD's Special Victims Unit or Special Victims Division. So what are those concerns?
So about 2 years ago, we had a hearing because of a Department of Investigation report where the Department of Investigation looked at the SVD over a period of 8 years and found chronic staffing shortages. So think of it this way. If the homicide unit at the NYPD, which is dealing with about 300 homicides a year, in the Special Victims Division, we have about double the number of detectives, 200, and they're dealing with over 5,000 cases a year. And these, you know, the rape cases, the sexual assault cases are especially nuanced. You have to be really thoughtful and victim-centric, trauma-informed when you're talking to assault survivors. And instead, these detectives are just overwhelmed. They have case after case. Their caseloads are 2 or 3 times higher than the national standards. And what strikes me the other day, I was watching, as most people do, Law and Order, SVU,
yes.
And it always starts with this elite unit at the police department. And I think that that's exactly what advocates and survivors are looking for this to be an elite unit.
So you are saying more needs to be done. Now, the NYPD was criticized in a report 2 years ago.
That was the one.
But some changes have been made. So the Special Victims Division, now run by a woman, and they've added detectives, they've improved their training and facilities to make victims feel more at ease. Now, this is what they're saying. Do you feel like it's improving?
So they did double the number of detectives. That is true. But what they needed to do was increase by even double that amount. So, you know, we're starting from a position that's pretty low, and where we need to go is really high. Let me give you another example.
Yeah.
When they say they've improved training, what does that mean? Well, if you look at the amount of training that's required to become a motorcycle police person, that takes 10 to 16 weeks of training. In order to investigate a rape case, they give it a week.
Wow. 1 week.
And what they need is 10 weeks, 15 weeks of training in order to help someone become experienced, understand from the victim's point of view what's happening. If they took that much time, they would better understand why a victim might change their story 3 times. Perfectly natural and normal to do that.
So more training, more staff. Now, new stats have come out, and those stats found that rape is down 13% citywide. This is compared to the same time last year. So what do you attribute those stats to?
Well, first of all, we all have to remember that rape is severely underreported. Some say by as much as 10 tenfold. So in other words, the 5,000 really represents probably 50,000 rape cases that are out there. People just don't feel comfortable coming forward. And what we want the NYPD to do is send the message that victims should come forward, they should feel comfortable, they should know that their assault will be taken seriously, they will be believed. And so, with little ups or downs, we really can't make any attributions.
Now, we did reach out to the NYPD and the mayor's office about these concerns. And so we do want to read something from a spokesperson, Sergeant Mary Frances O'Donnell, who said, and I think we're going to pull this up here on the screen for us, that recent criticism of SVD has presented inflammatory and inaccurate charges that ignore the real improvements that have been implemented over the past 2 years. It goes on to say that what's worse, these misleading attacks may actually dissuade survivors from coming forward. But in this next graphic, it is critical to have an honest, fully informed discussion about where the Special Victims Division is now. And the NYPD urges all survivors to come forward and report these heinous crimes. And they say we pledge to continue to do everything possible to investigate it, no matter when it occurred or who it is against. So what is your response to that?
Let's think about it. 2 years ago, they did make drastic changes. They eliminated the cold case unit. They eliminated the drug-induced rape unit, eliminated those detectives, and added those detectives to the adult squad in order to inflate the numbers, to show that there were more detectives in the adult squad. Since then, a year later, the New York Times reported that a woman came forward, as it was said at our press conference the other day. She came forward. She was not believed. She was dissuaded from reporting. The police had that person in custody, and the SVD did not pursue that person. They had his name and fingerprints. They let him go. And 3 more women were assaulted. That was a year after what the police are saying were meaningful changes. So no, I don't think meaningful changes have happened. And in fact, I think that the culture in the SVD has deteriorated. I think detectives are demoralized. And while we do, of course, want rape victims to come forward so they can seek justice, what I would encourage them to do is also reach out to survivor groups like the New York Alliance Against Sexual Assault, to reach out to advocates who are really going to support them, believe them, and help them come forward in, again, a trauma-centered, victim-centered way. It concerns me that the police are overreacting to these criticisms.
And there are also calls for more funding and for City Council to do more as well. So thank you.
No, I seriously believe, look at the number of homicides. They have come down from 5,000 to 300. Larcenies have gone down. As Mayor de Blasio says, safest city in New York, unless you're someone who has been sexually assaulted. So within the department, they can reallocate their resources. They don't need 100 detectives in homicide if they only have, 300 cases, and the number of homicide detectives hasn't changed. The number of rapes reported over the last 18 years has increased dramatically, and yet the number of detectives has not changed. So we need a reallocation within the NYPD, and fundamentally, we need them to take rape seriously. We need them to create the most elite, world-class, perfect Special Victims Division. That's what advocates and survivors are looking for.
Well, there is certainly a lot to talk about, and we will be following the story and watching what evolves, and we'll have more continuing coverage. And thank you so much for being here. Coverage of this story right here on CBSN New York. And you can find all the latest news and information on our website, and that is cbsnewyork.com.